So here we are. We have started. I believe, we have started. And you're off screen. You can't go.
How? Yeah.
Get closer to me. I know. I did shower today.
Yeah, like an hour ago.
Anyway, hello everybody. We have somebody new here with us tonight. This is RaeLynn Martinez.
Hi.
She is the studio manager at Performance High and the most prolific gigging musician I know. It's unbelievable how many gigs she does. So the reason we invited her to come on the show today is because we had a showcase last weekend. Not like this weekend, but like a week ago. And one of the students who was performing for her first time with us did a duet, and the teacher who was going to sing the male part of the duet got sick the day before, so he was out. And so I asked someone else who I know is a good singer to do the song, but he didn't know it, and he screwed up the lyrics pretty badly. He felt horrible, but, she felt like, kind of, ruin my performance or my experience, whatever. So that got us talking about all the crazy gig disasters we have all been through.
That's what got it started?
That's where it started.
That's what got it started because me and Adrian were talking about it, and I started to feel like, oh, poor thing. I was working the door, so I didn't even see it until she showed me the video. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But we were just talking about how that is also preparation for just being a live performing musician.
Right, yeah.
Because, there are disasters, but then there are also just, stuff that happens. And especially like you said, I perform a lot. We do a lot of private gigs. We're all acoustic, so we can do 10 separate gigs on a Saturday. And
which is unreal.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's fun. It's definitely different than any other genre, than any other musical experience.
Well, yeah, and you also have to know 600 songs.
Yeah, I mean, you better, and if you don't know, you better learn it on the break. Somebody better be able to sing it.
Oh my gosh.
But the things, I guess, there's so many things that my students or our students might consider disastrous that are just normal.
I know.
I try to tell my students, even when they come in, especially when they're really nervous or they're perfectionists or they're in their head, I try to let them know that if you want to be a live performer, not a studio musician, you want to be a live performer, you better get used to mistakes, your body not doing what it wants to because you have allergies or the AC sucks in the place, you might miss a note, you're probably going to forget some lyrics at some point. It's all normal, and I don't know if this analogy fits super well, but I'm a super sports person, so I always tell my students, I'm like, you go watch a basketball game, you see Steph Curry, there's no game that he makes every single shot that he takes. It's just
that's a good point.
Part of playing the game is missing shots, and nobody's like, oh, he's a terrible basketball player. Everybody is talking about the shots he did make, and also he doesn't go home and be like, oh, I only made 30 points, but I was only 60% of my shots.
Right.
Nobody does that in other professional things. Nobody's expected to be perfect. And the more you do live shows, bunch of stuff happens.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So we were just texting back and forth about there was a time this, and we're like, we should make a podcast out of it. So my first gig with Guitar Villains, which is was a live karaoke band, I had just joined, and they didn't have a regular person to provide PA, and so I think that was a big reason they had me join the band. I mean, I was also the keyboard player, but I think maybe the previous keyboard player, I don't know, but I had the PA that we were going to use that night in my car, and I was driving down to Denver from Boulder during rush hour, and my car broke down in the second to left lane on I-25 just north of downtown. It was probably kind of in downtown at at 5 o'clock. It was horrible. I was so panicked that I could barely even figure out how to dial my phone to get the police. And then I called the police, and they were like, "Just stay where you are." And I was like, "Okay, I'll stay where I am." Miles of traffic are backing up behind me. People are getting out of their cars, coming up to my window and yelling at me. I'm like, "Get out of the way!" And I'm like, they told me to stay here. I feel like
that's even nerve backtracking without the gig, and
Yeah,
just,
right.
you know,
Like
he
just that
ends
it's
it.
traumatic.
Like,
Yeah.
I could have nowhere to go, and that would still terrify me.
So it took well over an hour for a tow truck to make its way to me because obviously traffic was not moving. So it took forever. I finally, got a tow truck. One of the other band members came up and also, picked me up, and we put the PA in his car and then made it to the gig, and everything was fine.
Oh my gosh.
We actually made it, but
That
it
is
was
wild.
terrifying. Yeah.
I'm so in awe of your dedication to the gig. I would have been like, you know what? I've had a hard day. I'm stuck.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not.
You have to do the gig.
I would really want to do that, but that's definitely not gonna happen.
Isn't that weird though? I say that all the time. That there's something with gigs that's like any other job in the world. You could be like, I'm vomiting. I can't, and they're like, yeah, too bad. Like there is no reason that you get to take a gig out. You better be in the hospital, and the rest of your family better be in that same hospital.
Yeah.
Or you're in trouble.
Speaking of vomiting, I know that you have had buckets on stage.
Yes, I have had.
When we were talking about the
Trash
gig
cans,
disasters, me and my husband Matt, we were like, remember when Justin was so sick that you had to go to 4 different stores
Oh
to
my
find
gosh.
Pepto-Bismol
Yeah.
for that showcase?
Yeah, at
Lincoln Station.
Lincoln Station. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
wow,
yeah.
that was a rough one. Yeah, that wasn't so fun.
You looked miserable.
I was pretty miserable. Sometimes you just gotta
But you were telling me there were times when you were touring with no address that you would literally vomit between solos. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I got food poisoning one time, and there's just nothing to do. There's just nothing to do. And also, you're on tour and you're losing money anyway, and if you don't play, you're not going to get paid. So you absolutely have to do it. There's no choice.
Yeah, that is the weird about our job. That even teaching. I mean, obviously, if I'm sick, I don't want to come, but I don't like to just be like, oh, this.
Oh
happened.
yeah.
I have a headache. I can't come.
Yeah. And I mean, I would never, I always went out of my way not to call in other jobs that I've had. There were more normal kind of jobs, like teaching or something. But gigging is we were talking about that with, who were we talking to this weekend? We were talking about the casinos. And
oh yeah,
it didn't matter to the casino at all how bad the weather. I mean, they're up in the mountains,
right?
And they're if you're I mean, you better die on the way to the gig because otherwise you are blacklisted. You're out. You're done.
Oh my god!
You absolutely have to be there. And we've gotten stuck up there because the weather was so bad that we barely made it. And then after midnight, there's no way you're making it back down.
Right. And then, hello, things are happening.
Knew that was going to happen.
So there was one time at Ameristar, I think it was, where our bass player, I don't know if it was Ameristar or IL, but our bass player and his wife, they lived in Nebraska. So he came over from Nebraska to do the gig, and we barely, I think I might have made it on to the venue, to the casino 10 minutes before we were supposed to start.
Yeah.
Because the weather was that, fortunately we had set up the night before because we played 2 nights. And
Is that what happened? Yeah.
I
It doesn't matter.
I think so, but normally I would have brought some of the gear. Or no, I don't, who knows.
Either
but anyway,
way, yeah.
Anyway, point being, we tried to leave.
Yeah.
To go home after the gig, and we just either we slid through the intersection or we
watched someone. We were pulling out. I was gonna ride with you back because I rode up with Bill, and we had to took us 2 hours of detouring because all the roads were closed, officially closed, but you still got to make it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we started to pull out of the hotel, and we saw someone just skid right through the intersection, and they were clearly braking, but they were not even slowing down. And we were like, okay, that's not going to work.
Never mind. We're just going to go back to the hotel.
So we go back, and we're like, okay, can we get a room? And they are completely sold out.
Completely sold out.
What?
So all of us had to stay in the same room that our bass player and his wife had gotten. Thank goodness. So we had 7 people.
We wouldn't have gotten a room otherwise.
We would have slept in the lobby or something. Stayed up all night.
Played some slots the whole night.
So it was I was sleeping on the floor and people were sleeping on.
I slept in the bed with them.
Put 2 chairs together. Yeah.
On the very, very
Like,
edge.
cuddle
I know. None of us slept very well, that's for sure.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're right. Like with the weather thing, like even just this past New Year's Eve, we were playing at the St. Julian Hotel in Boulder. And we had that huge random, like, it didn't snow for like November and December. And then New Year's Eve, we're going to get this giant snowstorm. Literally, it normally takes me, especially if I take like E470, it normally takes me like probably like 40 minutes to get from my house over there. On the way there, it took me 2 hours to get to Boulder, and then it took me on I don't know. Anyways, so my experience was sucky just to get there. But our one of our percussionists for the salsa band, our timbales player, he literally totaled his car on the way there. He called us. He's like, I'm waiting for a tow truck. I don't even know how long it's gonna take them to come. I can't come. And like that's a big part of the salsa band is like the
you gotta have the timbales, yeah.
And so one of our other percussion, like the congas player, he went and got like his set from down the street, and we like made this hybrid like kit and timbales so that our actual kit drummer like played both.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, yeah, it was a mess. We're like, where is he? Oh, well, his car is totaled, but everybody else keep coming. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Especially New Year's, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, we had that years ago, before we were even No Address, the band that was No Address. We were rehearsing, and it was just a rehearsal, but we're idiots. We're like 20-year-old idiots. So no one checked the weather. There was a tropical storm coming that hit while we were rehearsing.
Okay. And you rehearsed in a warehouse.
This was when we were rehearsing, like literally in like a storage space warehouse. Like we just talk about sweaty in Florida. You're just in this concrete room. You're just in a like completely open storage space. But anyway, this storm comes through and it floods the entire city. And we're such idiots. We all try to drive home from that. And I think I might have been the only one whose car didn't get totaled by getting flooded.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It was like a complete nightmare, and we were all just such idiots. None of us checked any of that, or thought maybe we shouldn't drive home because there's standing water everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe cars weren't meant to be underwater.
Yeah, you can't go through the water.
Yeah.
Well, and I lived at the bottom of this hill. There was this huge 4-lane road, and it dips way down, and my house was up the street, but down by the bottom of the hill. So I spent the whole night, I hid beer in the bushes and spent the whole night, waving people down because the bottom of the hill was full of water and people would be roaring down the hill going 60 miles an hour and they'd slam into the water. And so I was out there, waving people down, don't drive into the flood, idiots. Yeah, so travel can make gigs.
You have
nightmarish.
A story about getting stranded in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I don't remember. You know which story I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That one. I love hearing it. I've heard it.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, so No Address. Again, we were touring, and we had... for whatever reason, I had flown to Jacksonville, and the rest of the band had taken the bus from wherever. We were going to Orlando to play at the House of Blues. So I'd flown into Jacksonville and was renting a car and driving down to Orlando. So on the way down, I get maybe an hour, halfway there. And I don't know why, but this woman in one of those really heavy BMWs, the really heavy sedan BMWs, all of a sudden slams on brakes so hard that the nose of the car hits the highway.
Oh my God.
And she spins around and is all of a sudden coming back up the highway against traffic. So I'm ready to dodge, but I look over, and it was hilarious too because they had rented, when I got to the car rental place, they were like, this is the only car we have, blah, blah, blah. And it's this huge Lincoln Town car. So I'm driving in Orlando in this huge Lincoln Town car. And this lady's flying back up the highway at us. And I was gotta get out of the way, but I looked in the mirror and I saw that there was some little car, and I was well, I'm gonna smash them right off the road. So anyway, she hits me. I kind of turned the car so that it hit the, the wheel or whatever. Anyway, so there's this huge wreck. She jumps out. She runs over and she's like, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!" She's like touching me all over. She thought she killed me. Yeah, it's like. Anyway, so I'm stuck just randomly on the side of the road on I-95, and I call the rental company, and I'm like, "Hey, I got in this wreck. Come pick the car up, and me, hopefully." And they're like, "Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there. Just stay with the car. Stay with the car." And I call back in 30 minutes. I'm like, "Hey, I really need to get to Orlando." And they're like, "No, stay with the car. You have to stay with the car. You have to stay with the car." Back and forth. I'm standing outside, summertime, Florida sun, 4 hours. Next to me is a desiccated alligator. Like, apparently an alligator had died on the side of the road and just gotten like mummified in the sun. It was like a 10-foot alligator. Anyway, finally, I'm like, I got to do something or I'm not going to make the show in Orlando, And I call the people and they're like, "No, you have to stay with the car. You have to stay with the car." And I'm like, "I can't do it." So I'm like throwing the keys under the car and,
oh my God.
Yeah. And so I call my friend who's in Jacksonville and, they come screaming down, pick me up. We've got it should be another hour and a half drive, but we need to be there in 45 minutes. So we're driving 100 miles an hour.
Oh, jeez.
Flying down the road, looking up on our phones how to get to the House of Blues thing. Come screaming up to the back of because it's in Disney. The House of Blues in Orlando is in Epcot or Disney or
great.
something. Right. So we scream.
Keep going off the...
Oh, I keep running out of the thing, yeah.
Here, I'm going to do this.
Okay, so I'll lean forward. Anyway, we come screaming up to the back of whatever lot we thought was the best, jump out of the car, and just start running for the House of Blues. And we're doing and people are trying to stop us because I didn't have my badges and stuff with me. It wouldn't have helped anyway. My badges were for the show, not for, or maybe I did have them, but they weren't for Disney or whatever. I'm doing football plays, straight arming people and jumping over stuff and literally running. There's security chasing me.
Oh my God.
We're just running through Epcot to the House of Blues. He comes screaming in there and they're like, "Wait, stop!" And I'm just running there, and I was in fact late, and the band had gone on anyway because they had to go on, And I come running up to the stage. Went right in time to they see me come in, yeah, and then my guitar tech's and he grabs a guitar and he hands it to me and I walk out right for the solo.
Oh my God! Talk about did you nail the solo?
I don't even remember. I was so frazzled.
Been all shaking.
Yeah, I think I probably would. But it was the solo for the song that was currently on the radio. It wasn't the song. It wasn't the song that did really well at radio. It was the second single that didn't do very well. But it was on the radio at the time, and it was on the radio big time in Orlando, and I walked on right for the guitar solo.
Oh my gosh.
And the place erupted because the singer told the audience "Hey, sorry, our guitar player isn't here. He got in a car accident today, but we're going to do our best anyway." And didn't say he's okay or And my dad actually drove down for that show, and all he knew was
Justin's in a car.
He got in a car wreck, and they're doing the show anyway, and so anyway, I walk on stage, and everybody's I'm back from the dead as far as the audience is concerned. They're yeah, it was totally amazing. Man. And then the downside of that night was there was a show called Westwood One, which was out of Westwood, LA, the neighborhood Westwood in LA. And it was, maybe it's still on, but it was a syndicated, rock band interview show. So it was on I think every Sunday night, and it was it was just an interview show. They talked to you for an 2 hours or something, played some of your songs, and I'd listened to it since I was a little kid because it would be on every week and stuff. And that night we were doing by phone, we were in LA. We were doing the Westwood One radio show, which was a huge dream of mine the whole time, was to be on Westwood,
Yeah.
But I was so screwed up and I was sunburned and I was just smelled there. And I was just I can't, I can't do a radio show. Like, I can't do it. And I was like, this is my dream to do this show, but like, I'll do it again, of course, because, cocky and thought that would last forever.
Oh, yeah.
And so I didn't do Westwood One.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a bummer.
And then the capper of that whole day is that fans obviously called in, and then I saw some of those people later at other shows and stuff, and apparently they could hear the band while they were waiting to go on the show. So like if you called in and you were going to like ask your question or do whatever, you could hear everything that was going on in the station while you were waiting on hold. And apparently the band was shit talking me the entire time they were on. Anytime they were on break or whatever, they were just like,
oh my God.
So people were like, I can't believe what the guys were saying about you. That was like awful. And like they couldn't like talk. They were just on hold, but they could hear like when they were on commercial breaks or whatever, they could like hear what was going on in the studio. And they were like, gosh, I didn't know you guys were on that bad of terms or whatever.
Oh my God. Oh, great.
it was terrible.
That is
and I didn't get to do Westwood. It was a disaster all day of just total.
Except for the solo.
Epic proportion. Except for the solo. Except for the solo. I came in for the solo, and then the closer song. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a travel disaster.
I have my own disaster that wasn't a disaster for like anybody else, but it was a disaster for me, and it's gonna be a core memory for the rest of my life. So, at this time, I wasn't like gigging super regularly. I was like just subbing with mariachis here and there, and mostly I play violin in the mariachi. Well, this one time my husband was playing like a group who had a restaurant, and they're like, our vihuela player's not here, like can you please come sub, yada yada.
And tell us what.
And the vihuela is like a tiny guitar. It has 5 strings.
5 strings, yeah.
And it's just the rhythm instrument, basically. And so what happened was the bass player is this is the reason why I didn't want to go. Because he's like this old, grumpy, like really mean dude to anybody. Nobody wants to play with him because he just like starts slapping his bass strings and like he's trying to yell at you because you're not like playing loud enough or playing fast enough, even though he like rushes all of his runs. So like he's the one who messes up the tempo, and then he's yelling at you. And I didn't think that he was gonna yell at me because like he works with Matt and just like I don't know. I would have probably walked out. Like, everybody knows me. Anyways, he didn't really yell at me, but I'm playing, and if you guys ever notice, I have super short nails on this hand and really long nails on this hand because of the rhythm. You don't use a pick like guitar.
You probably can't, right? You gotta.
You either use a finger pick or just like your fingers. Yeah. Anyways, so I put these like press-on nails to go, but since I didn't have time, I didn't do the freaking like dehydration of the nails or whatever before you stick them on, so they stick whatever. And so I just put these press-on nails just on this hand, and I'm like playing. It's like 3 hours, and we're like a couple hours in. And the guy, we're playing tables, right, at the restaurant. So the guy's like, be louder, and I'm like, literally, the instrument I brought, because some of them were louder than the other ones, this is not going to project anymore, but he's like yelling at me, so I'm like trying to play as loud as I can, and the string gets like under my pointer finger, and it just rips off my nail, and my nail goes flying like 10 feet behind me, and we're still
in a restaurant.
In the air. Okay,
in a restaurant.
And I'm just like, oh my God. So I keep playing like nothing. And all of a sudden, this little girl comes up to me because she sees the rest of my nails, and she comes and brings me my nail that fell in her plate. It flew over me and landed in somebody's food. Like, they had one of those, like, big whole fish. It was on the fish. And I was just, like, mortified. But they were like, where did this come from? Because I was playing so hard that it just flew, like, feet. And I'm like, what did we do?
My
did
gosh.
We pay for her food? Like the whole night, I'm like, oh my God, how is that gonna happen? been like, it could have flew anywhere, but it just landed right in her food. And thankfully, like, the family thought it was hilarious, and they're like, no, it's fine. And I was just, like, mortified, like, what do we do?
Oh,
They're
my
gonna
gosh.
kick us out of the restaurant. This is not safe. So that is my biggest disaster, even though things have been much worse. She just came up and was like, here's your note.
my
I was like,
And that's like, and that's one of those, like, there's a million bad gig situations that you know how to deal with, but like, what do you do? What's the etiquette of, like you said, what do we, buy them new food? I mean, I don't know, what do I, like, oh my gosh.
Like, they already said it was fine, and I'm so worried, and Matt's like, let's just go, come on, let's go. But, like, my nail fell in their food. Oh, yeah, that was,
Oh my God.
that one will never leave me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's, wow.
I have one that's way less funny. It's not funny at all, but I'm not the funny person. So you were there at this one. So it was the Petty Nicks experience. We were playing a festival in Littleton, and we all gathered, we sound checked, we all gathered behind the stage, 10 minutes beforehand to just be ready to go. And our band leader and bass player, Vic, was not there. And we were like, where is he? What's going on? And then, like, finally figured out there was some commotion.
He's the one always hassling.
Oh, he's always there. Yeah.
You know, getting everybody else. You know, we got, like.
Yeah. And he was
But
nowhere
he's
to be
late.
seen. Yeah.
He would never be late.
So we wait, and we're like 5 minutes before we go on, and then we see a little commotion in the corner of the field. There's like a group of people around something.
Yeah, and like 10 cops.
Yeah.
Cops.
Yeah, it turns
Yeah.
out that Vic had a heart incident and had fallen down and passed out, collapsed, and the cops were doing CPR on him, and he technically died for 7 minutes. So
God, that is like the disaster of the year.
I know.
And then,
Yeah, we went over to him, and I know you didn't want to say anything, but like I couldn't see all of him. Like, we could just see like a leg or something, and you were like, "That is a dead man's leg." But you didn't say it. He didn't say it. Then he told me later because his wife and his daughter were there too.
Oh my God.
So they called the ambulance, took him away, and
I mean,
we did not.
you can only laugh because he apparently came to in the ambulance and was.
We all know that he's okay.
Yeah, he's totally.
And
We did not know that.
No.
We didn't know that, but later we found out he came to in the ambulance and was trying to talk them into taking him back to do the gig.
I have a gig. See, the show must go on. But so we talked to the festival organizers, and they were like, "You don't have to play. If you guys want to do an acoustic set or you want to figure something out, you guys think about it and tell us what you want to do." So we were just like stunned. We're like, "What do we do in this situation? We don't know if our band leader is dead." That's pretty. Like, they really screw up your head.
Yeah, like
It was.
He looked pretty dead when he left.
Like, keep playing, but then you're like, wait, though.
Well, and we knew.
This is really...
We knew what he would want us to do. I mean, he's more show goes on no matter what than
Did you guys
anyone.
play?
We did.
Oh my God.
What we did is Brian Stacks, Mr. Jack of all trades, master of all of them, switched from keys to bass and played bass that night instead.
Dang. Shout out to Brian.
Yeah.
Brian can do anything.
Yeah, mine was definitely not that dramatic, but right after last year when things started opening up in, like, people were able to have, like, weddings and yada yada because the weather was warmer. Well, so we're used to gigging hours and hours and hours, except during COVID when we don't gig at all. And so I'm already, like, struggling with the stamina to play, like, the violin for a while, right?
Right.
So we go to this wedding out in the middle of nowhere, like past Parker, like in the mountains somewhere, and we were supposed to have this guy sub on trumpet with us. So he's supposed to play trumpet, and my husband was supposed to play vihuela. And it's this wedding, it's like one of our first weddings back, and it's a fancy place. Dude's nowhere. He's not answering our phone calls. We're like, where are you? Like, what's happening? And so Matt's like, well, I'm just gonna, good thing he brought his trumpet. He was like, I'm gonna play trumpet. You're just gonna have to play vihuela. Well, I hadn't played anything before. So all of my calluses, even from guitar, gone because there's no gigs. So even when you practice, you don't practice enough to get your stupid calluses. And for vihuela, you like need one here and you need one here for the chicks.
Because
right?
it's like that.
It's like I'm playing the drums.
That's the drums of mariachi music.
So you're literally just like hitting all these parts of your hands. Well, this gig is 4.5 hours long. And they're like, you're going to have to play. I don't have a pick. I had to wear a giant pick, like that fits my husband's finger. Like I'm holding it. It was like I'm bleeding like from my fingers, and I'm just trying to like get through it. But I also have ADHD, so I'm like playing, and all of a sudden like I'm like, I don't know, somewhere else, right? In La La Land. And then all of a sudden I come to, and I'm like, why is this cumbia like a song that's supposed to be like like so slow? We're like, and I'm like looking around, and they're like, yeah, it's your fault. Why are you going so slow? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And so that was pretty horrifying. We did get through the 4.5 hours, even though I was bleeding, and I was like, I guess I should really just get in shape on all my instruments again. And now, all of my calluses are back and stuff. But it was a mess. Like that. It was a mess.
Painful.
That's a
5 hours. You're just like, what is this?
Remember the show we did with Urban Dance Theory, and it was up in the mountains, and I can't remember if it was spring, whatever. It's freezing cold outside.
Oh yeah, it was a private party.
It's a private party.
It was like a wake party.
It was a wake. It was
food.
Oh, food.
You can keep talking, or you can wait for me. I can edit that, whatever.
I want to know what kind of wakes you guys play. Because we're Mexican, and people be calling us to the house when the dead person is still there. Oh my God.
Okay,
like,
so we don't have to...
It's so crazy. Like, even to me, it's crazy. But, like, to other cultures, they're like, before they call the coroner, they call the mariachi.
To make sure that the mariachi can do it?
And we come... No, to come... When they just died, like, you know, like your dad or something's sick and they're gonna die. Well, they die at home in their bed... And they call all the family to come say goodbye. And they call you to come and serenade them. Yes. And like that, it is so weird. It's still so weird to me. Usually the ones I've been to, they've been like an hour after they died. We'll play like an hour with the dead body just in its bed right there, wherever it died. And then like they'll call the coroner. Well, this one time my husband was in Atlanta. He was working in Atlanta, and they did this wake, like, the guy just had died in his bed or whatever. They hired mariachis for a whole day. Like, they would come and do, like, 5 hours, and then another group would come, and then they would come back, and my husband was, like, a couple people in the group were, like, had to step out and like vomit because like the guy started like leaking fluids because the people would like hug him and move his body, and he's
how
like,
is that not your first nightmare kick story? Oh my God.
Because it literally like it's a thing, and literally my husband like last week my husband was like, so we had to do a dead guy gig, and I'm like, thank God I have to teach on Tuesdays because dead guy gigs are not my favorite gigs. I'm like, before you call the coroner, you call the mariachi. You're like, one last hurrah for Grandpa Jose or something. Like, and it's a thing. It's a thing, and you don't even know till you get there.
Oh.
You don't know.
Because you just get hired.
They just hire you. They're like, here's the address. We want you for an hour or whatever. And we show up, dead guy. And you're just like, great. I'm going to pretend like this is not creepy at all. And they're just like, it's our goodbyes. And I'm like, call the coroner. Like, what if he has something that we could catch?
Is there like a religious reason, or like is it tradition?
It's just a traditional like everybody wants to come and say goodbye, and especially like in Mexican culture, from what I've experienced, it's like death is not like scary, and it's not. I mean, it's sad because they died, but it's not the same as like in other cultures.
Right.
You know, we have Dia de los Muertos and like stuff where we.
Right.
So they're just like, oh, they're making their journey. Everybody comes over and we have a giant party. saying goodbye, and the dead guy's here to just so you could say
That-
goodbye.
Yeah.
And I can't handle, they're like hugging him and kissing them, girls or guys, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
they're dead guys, they're leaking, guys.
The leaking part is this.
And it starts to smell bad. Like, obviously, they just died. They're like fresh corpse. And like my husband had to play this one. Like this guy was sick.
What?
And every like 3 days they would hire the mariachi to come and play for their dying dad or whatever.
Oh my gosh!
And
Because they think
he would make them play the same song for hours. Like this old guy, they'd be like, "What do you want?" And he'd be like, "This song." So, "Oh, okay, we'll play it again. Like we're here for you." And then like he dies, and they call you back. Well, he's finally dead, so come play another 2 hours. And you're just like, "Okay, we'll be there." But yeah, it's definitely the weirdest gigs.
yeah.
Yeah, the dead people.
The,
Yeah.
the
They're dead.
weirdest gigs
Wow.
ever
I
to
don't
exist.
even know if that's illegal. Like, can you just keep the dead person for like a couple days?
I think you can do whatever you want, really.
I
have no
I
idea.
feel like that's like a hazard or something. Like,
Probably.
maybe you
Yeah.
should call somebody.
This gig was not pales in comparison. There was no. This was like a wait. This was like after the funeral.
I don't think
or
anybody
something.
can top that.
No, we're
But
not
we'll
gonna
go
talk
on.
But guys, it's not a disaster. It's just work.
Right.
That's a rough gig, though. That's a rough gig.
Yeah, you're like, we better charge extra for this.
So I'll try to top it with the punchline to my gig story was that it was cold. It was cold.
The one that I left, and
Yeah, we were in the mountains and we were playing Awake, and
it was outdoors.
And it was outdoors in the mountains in like it was
Maybe November?
It was well below freezing.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And we had to play for like 4 hours and it was below freezing and it was Awake, so we were like everyone was like clearly having this very good cathartic time, so we didn't want to be like, I don't know if we even talked about it, but I was like, we can't like bail, like people are having this like celebration of life, great time, whatever.
Yeah, picture that with the dead body.
Yeah.
With the actual
Right.
Oh man,
Unbound.
that's unbelievable. Yeah.
Oh, cold gigs are also just a part of our freaking life. Like,
Right.
all
Yeah.
the time, especially because we don't have gear, right? We don't have microphones, we don't have amps, we just show up. And for some reason, every time during the winter, they're like, can you start playing outside? And
then-
come
and then
inside.
come-
Obviously, if you're a musician, you
Yeah.
know you walk inside the house, everything's out of tune. And the
Yeah.
strings and the horns are opposite. So like
Oh.
when it's hot, the horns go sharp and the strings go flat. When it's cold, the strings go sharp and the horn goes flat. So like it's not like we're all moving in the same direction. We're always like, oh, this is a bad idea, but they insist on it because they want the surprise. And we come in and it's just like blank, blank. Like, oh my god, I hate it every time. It's a constant disaster in the winter months. Like every time they insist on playing, it's like snowing. They don't care. They're like, come on, just start outside. And we're like, we hate you. Like, we always tell them, like, all right, it's going to sound bad. They're like, we don't care. And even now, like, in the spring, people are, like, making us play outside gigs at, like, 10 p.m. In Colorado's, like, February, March.
Oh, my gosh.
Your hands are, like, frozen.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
we're going to start asking if this gig is outside. Like,
Yeah.
because it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah,
frozen.
that's the worst when your hands are just like
Yeah, you can't
numb,
do
cold, and
anything.
you're like
You're
trying to
just
like warm them up. It's yeah.
I feel lucky that I don't usually have to play an instrument.
Yeah. When you play bass, we did play one set one time at a festival, and it was maybe 45 minutes. But in the course of 45 minutes, it started raining really hard.
Was this art?
No.
Because this happened to us too.
Yeah, right.
But yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, you'll have to tell that one next. In the 45 minutes we were playing, and we're like, it's like an outdoor like amphitheater. It's like a shed thing. So there's like a roof thing over us. So it's like the rain is like blowing in, but all they did was like, people ran out and like shoved our pedal boards and stuff back. So we're just still playing and everybody at the festival is doing whatever. But in the course of the 45 minutes, it rained and then the sun came back out and it was really hot and then it hailed like unbelievably hard. And when that happened, everybody's like running for cover because it's hailing super hard. Sun comes back out and then it starts raining again in the 45 minutes that we're playing. And so we're like, and like it hails super hard. So everyone like runs for cover. So we're like still playing because we don't know what to do. But no one's no longer in front of us. And you finish a song and these cheers are coming out of nowhere because everyone's like run for like, they're like hiding and like, whatever. Yeah, we didn't know what to do. We just kept going. Like,
yeah. We've had a couple of rain gigs. So there was one, it was our band, Adriano band. And we were in some like Rhino area festival, River North. So there was like, it was Final Fridays or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, this isn't like the best story, but it was a rain story. So we were playing in a loading dock.
Right. Yeah.
So the venue was, they put us in a loading dock. So we were, 6 feet off the ground at the very edge of just a hole in the building where trucks would normally back up to unload stuff.
But they had like tables and stuff out there, like
out in front.
Or there were people out in front.
Oh yeah. There were people. Yeah. Anyway, just while we were playing, just rain started coming in, and since there was no overhang or anything, we were just like literally on the front of this thing. This just started, raining sideways into the thing.
Oh my God!
I think we ended up calling it. I think we just stopped playing because everybody just disappeared, and we were getting soaked. And then there was the gig. It was a 4th of July with Petty Nick's Experience in Highlands Ranch.
Oh my God.
So big amphitheater area. I mean, huge production. We had like a laser light show. There was, big hired, light trusses and all this stuff planned.
Yeah.
And
fireworks.
We started sound checking. Yeah, fireworks.
Yeah.
I think we had sound checked and then the storm rolled in because as it does in Colorado. And the production company didn't have anything to cover their stuff with.
Nothing.
But I had an entire, like, Costco-sized box of trash bags that I just kept in my car for purposes like that. So I pulled it out, and everybody was rushing around, covering the stacks of speaker mains and stuff, and everything. It rained so hard. I think there was like an inch of water.
Yeah, there was.
God.
And then it cleared up, and then we played the show, and it was great.
Yeah, and the show itself was fine, but
a different 4th of July.
Yeah, the whole entire amphitheater flooded.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of inches of standing water that weren't going anywhere. So that gig was canceled before we even got to it.
I will say that reminded me somehow of one of the worst gigs. It wasn't. I mean, we were playing, but we weren't part of the disaster. We were playing in another amphitheater thing, like an outdoor. I mean, not unlike Red Rocks, just not obviously as scenic or whatever, but like an outdoor where there's a stage and then there's, this whole complex around it and whatever. And we play and everything's fine. And the headliners that night were a band called 3 Doors Down. Very big band for a while. Yep. Still doing it. Anyway, they're like 15, 20 minutes into their set. And there's maybe 8,000 or 10,000 people there. And they're about 15 minutes into their set. And the power goes off. Like the power to like that part of the city goes off.
Oh.
And so you've got like 8,000 or 10,000 people in complete pitch blackness and like the whole neighborhood.
Oh my God.
And we were like up at the top of the rim and I think we were hanging out at like one of the merch booths, like where you buy t-shirts or whatever, Mm-hmm. And we were standing around talking to, people that had come to the show, and stuff starts getting like really weird, and people start like running around, and you start like there's like people like running and stuff, and we're like going like, oh my God! So we like grab these girls, and like
this could get to
we're
be a
like
mob
we're like
mentality.
thinking this is going to turn into like The Purge or something. Like this is going to be very bad. There's a lot of people here, and the lights are totally out. I mean, it's pitch black. So we like grabbed the girls we were talking to and like jumped the counter into the merch booth and like were like hid them in the merch booth because we're like, what's gonna happen? Like this is getting like, you know, and why are people starting to like run around and stuff?
Yeah, like that's safer. Like
yeah, it was totally
in the dark.
yeah.
Oh,
and
man.
Luckily, Brad from Three Doors saved the day. They came out and got like some like generator and like hooked it up to some little PA they had, and he stood on a chair. No, he wasn't on a chair. He stood there with this little like portable PA powered speaker thing with a generator running, and one of his roadies, I think it was Panda, just was standing on a chair with a flashlight, like as a spotlight. And he like saved the day by leading the entire amphitheater in just doing their songs a cappella.
Like oh my
God. That's what one of you guys said that reminded me of it. Was he would be like, "What do you guys want to sing? No, everybody stay here. Everybody stay here. What do you guys want to sing? We'll sing it together."
Gosh.
And he would be like, "And the chorus, 1, 2, 3," and he was like leading the whole place in this big sing along. And they kept being like, and they kept asking for the same songs, and he's like, "What do you guys want to hear?" And they'd be like, "Play blah, blah." And he's like, "Well, we already done that one." They'd be like, "No, we want to."
We don't care.
So he was doing the same songs like 3 or 4 times, but he like totally knew, like he couldn't stop doing it until the lights came back on. Like it wasn't safe. He did that for like an hour and a half. Like it was the craziest thing. And he'd be like, "And here comes the bridge. You guys don't know the bridge. Don't worry, chorus 2, 3, 4." Like,
you know, we definitely need to make that a new like category for our teachers in training. Is like teach your students that the show must go on.
Right.
Because we are wired as like performing musicians that way. I remember a couple of years ago, it was pre-pandemic, but it was on Father's Day, and I had like this church gig with my mom, and I was playing the piano, and it was just an acoustic set, and it was just us. My mom was singing, and I was singing and playing piano. All of a sudden, my mom like looks at me, and she had got this like insane, excruciating like head pain. So she just, like, puts the mic down and just, like, looks at me and, like, she, like, turns pale, like, in pain and just, like, runs to the back and, like, starts screaming in the back, like, she can't even see, and she's screaming, and I'm just on the piano, like, do I just keep singing?
Oh, my gosh.
Like, and then it's, like, worse because it's my mom, right? Yeah. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like looking around to like make sure people are like gonna go assist her, and she's just like crying and screaming in the back room, and I like, well, I did stop and address like, well, let's just pray or something. and then I'm like, so I finished the set, and I kept singing, and then they had already took her to the hospital, and so I like finished it, and I ran to the hospital, and I was like, that's literally like what we're ingrained to do. Like you would think I'd be like, okay, well, enough music.
I know.
I'm out. But you're just like, well, I guess I'll get there when I get there. Let me actually.
What caused that pain?
She has what are called cluster headaches that started then, and they're like a migraine, but like
I've heard
a million times worse, and they
Yeah.
actually don't know what causes them. So they have like they did all these MRIs and CTs, and the doctors at that hospital were awful. Like they wouldn't get her into see a CT. They tried to give her a giant steroid, and I was like, "Isn't that a steroid?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "She's diabetic. Like, why are you trying to give her a steroid?" If you don't know, steroids like make your blood sugar go up for any person.
Oh.
But like they're really dangerous if your like pancreas doesn't work. Like, and they're like, the doctor's like, "Oh my god, we'll cancel that." And I'm like, okay, but yeah, so she's much better with that now. She is managing. But yeah, I just remember just like, well, I gotta still a whole 30 minutes of music to play. So yeah.
You know what though? You mentioned something, and not to gloss over your mom's terrible headaches.
She's fine.
Yeah.
She doesn't really get them anymore. But.
Yeah. Yeah. But you said something about acknowledging it, and that's something I learned. I probably learned it as much from doing like radio and stuff. But like, if something weird and awkward happens, you have to find some way. Like your best bet is to somehow be like, yep, that just happened. No, I also know. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like, yeah, you have to like let the pressure off. Like, if you try to just like act cool, you know, your way
You're
out of it.
clearly not cool.
Yeah. You gotta like, you know, if you bomb it bad enough, you gotta acknowledge it somehow. You gotta be like, whoops, like, you know, you just gotta like let the pressure off of it. But that's
Well, this should give our students some perspective.
Yeah,
like, oh, my voice broke. Or, like, I had a student who, after the showcase, she contacted me the next day. She wanted to drop one of her 2 songs for the next showcase because she didn't like how her low note sounded. And I was like, you got to get some time on stage. Like, first of all, that's nothing to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation before one of your students went up and she was so nervous. And I was like, hey, like, it doesn't matter if you miss a note. Like, it happens. And that's, like, I guess the perspective we're giving our students is that these are disasters. Like, when your string breaks, when your voice cracks, when whatever happens, that's just part of the game. Like, we didn't bring any of those stories because it happens every time.
All the time. That's
every
not
time
even,
something happens.
That is funny. None of these stories are about, like, messing up or forgetting stuff.
Because that's part of the game.
That's gonna, I love what you said about Steph Curry or whoever, like, you miss shots. You just do. No one goes like, oh, he's terrible because he missed that one thing. Or no one even goes, you can even have a terrible game. And people don't think, oh, well, they just suck. You know, like, it's like, well, you know, not a good...
Not his best game.
True about music.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like, I say it all the time. I mean, like...
There's a reason you have a job in the studio and it takes hours to record a 3-minute vocal.
Yeah, like, right. It takes a few tries.
Nobody sounds like the produced vocal because it takes so much work. Like, and so just go into that with that mindset of like, you're gonna make mistakes and those are not gig disasters.
No, those are not.
When you forgot that lyric, that is not the gig disaster.
Yeah,
like, I sing the same song probably every week at like multiple gigs, and sometimes my brain will still be like, "Oh, we don't know those lyrics."
I know it's the weirdest thing.
And you're just like,
yeah.
And I'll just make a joke out of it, like with the clients, and like look around because somebody knows the lyrics. Just to give me the first word.
That's a good bit. That is excellent advice. That is excellent advice.
It just happens. You can't let those things stress you out. Like.
Yeah,
you
sometimes
popped your B string. Well, that sucks. Like,
yeah, you're just gonna
started the solo in the wrong key.
And you're
I did that.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
There was a time. So I played a keyboard solo in one of our songs in our band, and so I would sound check the keys before we started, and then when it came time to play the solo, I would go over and play the solo. Well, this particular keyboard would retain a transpose setting even after you turned it off.
Oh, right. Which means if you're not a keyboard player, kind of like a capo on the guitar, the transpose button will let you make it so you're hitting the keys that are in C, but the notes that come out will be in D or E
whatever
or whatever you moved it to.
I don't know why, but the keyboard was transposed, and I didn't find out until I started playing the solo, and everything was way off. And I was like, I think I'm hitting the right notes, and then I like... a couple bars in, I figured it out. I fixed it. No, I fixed it. I stopped and I transposed it back down. I was like, now I got it. Ha.
That's so bad. I've had the experience happen with like so many electric guitar players. Will like change the key or something. They'll just like come in and they're just in the wrong fret, but they're playing like the right thing in their key, and so everybody's looking around like, is it you? Is it us? Who's in the wrong key?
Yeah.
That's like we were doing Landslide one time. I think maybe a tailgate.
Yeah.
And the acoustic guitar player was supposed to have capoed it at 6 or 5 or whatever it was, and they capoed it at the wrong fret. And I didn't check. Usually I like fade in a few notes, like roll in a few notes just to make sure that the key's right. And I didn't do it that time, and I rip into the solo and I'm off, and I can't tell if I'm off, up, or down. Like, you know, sometimes when something starts going wrong and your brain just like goes blank.
It's
You're
very
just like,
hard to
I don't know what's happening.
Especially, well, when you learn music, you learn it in chunks, right? Your brain learns like the chunk. So if you come in at a middle of the chunk, your brain's like, no, we don't know. We don't know it from
and that's
here.
and I couldn't get out of it. I just like literally had to stop at some point. And just be like,
I was so bad.
I can't. My brain, to this day, it's always been a thing, and it's still a thing. Whenever we'll play like a song in F, my brain, even though we'll play the next song in whatever other key, D, my brain will tell my violin that we still need to be in like a B flat position. We still have to play the B flat. And like, even though I know it's going to happen, I'm going to play a B flat in that next song after that. And then I'm just like, oh, like, why? Why do you do that? And like, but it's just one of those things that I'm just like, well, that happened.
But what I tell people is like, there's that thing, that's why, and I should stop cursing as much as I do. The coarse rock and roll to say, you know, making a mistake on stage is that you ate shit. And like eating shit is super important in your development as a musician because you have to learn how to like
to control that cortisol. Like it's not the end of the world at that moment because there's more notes. Like we're already in the whole audience is in the next measure.
They're in the next stage.
So
they
you
don't
better get there.
They're not even sure. They're like, that sounded weird for a second, but we're already past it. But I tell people all the time, like when you start out, like a big mistake, any mistake ruins your life for like 2 weeks. And then as you keep going and you keep playing and doing gigs and making mistakes, what happens is that recovery period gets smaller and smaller until the recovery period, I'll mess something terrible up and I'll be like, I want to die, but that feeling lasts for like 1 second. And I'm like, and then I'm like, I'll do better next time. Whatever, you know. Like,
I'm like, your brain right now thinks it's gonna die, and then you get on stage and you don't die, and your brain's like, oh well, we didn't die, I guess I don't have to give that much panic next time. And then every time you don't die, it gets better. It gets a little better. You get more and more sure. Me, like, how do you get
exposure
over stage fray? I'm like, you keep teaching your brain that this is not a death life or death experience.
And that's a great point.
Yeah, so I'm like, I just know I'm going to screw up at some point today in our 10 gigs. So.
Yeah, you play so many gigs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and we don't have set lists. We do all requests, unless we do like a stage show, but it's all requests, and so they'll be like...
That must be, because I do that, I don't do many of those, but I do that with the dueling piano gig.
Yeah.
Where it's just all request, and that's so hard, because they'll be like, all right, we're doing Bohemian Rhapsody, and you're like, well, technically I know that, but... if you just spring it on me, like I wasn't thinking about that song.
Yeah.
Usually in a normal set, like I'm like at some point in one song, I'm looking at the set list, I'm going, oh, that's what I have to do next.
Uh-huh.
So I'm getting that kind of pulling it up in my brain, but somebody just goes, hey, you know, whatever song. Yeah. Country Roads, John Denver, play it. And you're like,
we're like looking at each other like, somebody tell me they know what key that this is going to be in.
Man. That is brutal. That is brutal.
And usually, like, if one person can sing it, like, we're going to wing it. Like, and you'll see, like, and Matt, he's been doing this, like, since he was, like gigging these type of gigs since he was, like, 14 or something. Wow. So he's 36, so he has a lot more experience than like me, right? Like, even though I've been playing a long time since I was a kid, I haven't been doing the gig since I was a kid. I used to play in set lists. So he usually knows like the lyrics or something, and it's funny because he's just over here like we'll tell like the rhythm section what time signature we're in. So they know what rhythm to play, and then Matt's over here like making 1, 5, 4 like numbers. Not yet. Okay, here we're going to the 4. and then so I'm trying to make up like little like
little licks. Fills.
Little fills. And it's funny because the bass player will be like giving us a preparation line to like go to the 4 chord, and then Matt's like, no. And so then I'm like having to change my note because it was gonna land on the 4, and then I'm like, and we're just like, oh my god, because he's preparing that like dominant 7 on the 1, and we're like, not yet, no, we're not going there, and so that happens very regularly, but
and fun. Even with all of that, people love what you do, and you work nonstop.
We make more money in this like type of music than I think like any other person who's not famous.
There's nothing. No, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
And there's no setup time, so like it's all paid time. But it is like Matt practices 4 hours a day, every day.
He does. He's a beast.
Day.
Yeah.
And he like could be like, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years, but
No.
Nope, he's still there every day. Now he's practicing the violin because he wants to be able to, like, tell us this is what you need to do. And, like, yeah, he's just a very dedicated practice person. So if you think you can't practice, Matt's been practicing for 4 hours his whole music.
And after doing it, yeah, that's good to, boy.
Yeah.
Yikes. Speaking of practice, I've got to start looking at acoustic showcase material.
Oh, yeah.
Should probably start looking at that.
That's
I
first
gotta make
rehearsals
sure
next week.
the material's in the folder.
Yeah.
We'll get it done.
Okay,
We'll get it done. We
it's
always
gonna
get
be
it done.
beautiful. We are professionals.
I'm falling off my chair.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I hope you didn't fall off the screen.
I might have for a second, but it's not going to matter for a second.
Cool.
Don't
I
be
know
afraid
you're-
of the disasters, guys.
Yeah.
We all have them. There'll be more. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Enjoy them. They're putting the miles on the car.
Yeah, that's the one thing you can't fake. You can't fake miles on a car.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah,
It's just-
these are super fun. This
It's
is
so
the
easy,
best
right?
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing to... Yeah.
You want me to talk like?
All right, okay. Time for dinner. It's at the front door. Anyway, RaeLynn, thanks so much for coming over
Yeah.
and sharing your stories. I'm sure you've got
Thank
more.
you.
We could do it again.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Yeah,
do
we'll have to
something.
do... Yeah, we'll
We'll
do it
have
again.
to have people write us in their disasters, and we'll be like, "This isn't our story, but
Yeah.
someone else." I'm sure all
Yeah,
the
that-
musicians
yeah.
we
Yeah.
know have had their own stories.
It's inevitable. Ooh,
Gonna happen.
Cool.
All right.
All right, well, thanks for listening and watching. See you
Bye,
next
if
week.
you made it this far.
Yeah, thanks.